Tommy Robinson's been released today, and he's done a little video outside the prison. He's got a full sort of dark red beard, which probably disguises the fact he's lost some weight. And he's got, apparently there's another video where he's in the back of a car. He's been to the Irish butchers in Luton for some black pudding and sausages because his mother's going to do him a full English with his friends. And he's obviously in a very upbeat mood. You would be, wouldn't you? And he was released early because he took the video down that they were complaining about. A couple of things he said. He said everyone had treated him well. You know, the prison guards had treated him well. He said there were 16 empty cells on the floor he was on. 16 empty cells. I thought they were full. We're letting really bad criminals out to make space in jails, and yet we keep Lucy Connolly in a cell, which could be used for a worse or a criminal. Do you get me? Another thing he said that if it wasn't for Elon Musk buying Twitter and calling it X, you wouldn't have the free speech that we've got now, and we wouldn't, because we can't trust journalists, we can't trust, they're activists as well as journalists, we can't trust the media, we can't trust the papers. I mean, I looked at the papers today because it's announcing that Tommy Robinson's been released. Every single one mentioning being the leader of EDL. He hasn't been in EDL for 10 years. It doesn't even exist anymore. They're all really unflattering shots of him, like too close. Usually, you know, where it's been a screenshot of a video where he's saying something that looks like he's growling. You know, this is so unfair. And I've even seen footage, it was Sky News, I think, where it's showing Tommy Robinson out at a rally, you know, a demonstration, whatever, and he's talking about something, and there's a voiceover. And the voiceover asks a question, but then it clips to Tommy being interviewed in the studio. So it's not the same thing, where he's answering a completely different question, but they've made it look like he's answering the voiceover question, which takes you down completely the wrong path. That's the standard of journalism today. That's what we're up against. And people wonder why we turn away from the BBC. We turn away from the BBC because we've got to pay for it as well. We've got to pay to have stuff fabricated. At least if you're going to do the news, try and do it honestly. And this is why it's so important to understand where we sit in society today. When you think America, Donald Trump's administration have sent over a delegation of people from America to investigate why we don't have free speech. That's how bad it is. Charlie Kirk's been over, a well-known commentator, and he's been interviewed a couple of times on GB News. You can get it on YouTube. And he said, after a few days in London, when you get home, kiss the ground when you get back to America. I mean, don't get me wrong, I think America has its own problems. You could up sticks and go and live there if you could afford the healthcare, and go and find somewhere really nice. But there's always somebody dodgy knocking around. There's more batshit crazy people in America than there are in our country. Bigger nucleus of people. But it's really strange times to think that a delegation of high-ranking officials are actually over in the UK, or have been over in the UK, interviewing people who have been arrested on hate speech laws or have had those kind of problems. And I know that because one of the people who got arrested after the Liverpool, the Southport stuff, told me that. So these are strange times, and we have to make the best of them, because our weaponry is in fact our free speech. Now, Ed Davies moving on, Ed Davies has started, I'm laughing, a Reform Watch website. They're going to keep an eye on reforming the councils. Really, Ed? This is the man who didn't do anything for the post office scandal, the postmasters that were absolutely duped out of their livelihoods. And he could have done more. And this man is supposedly starting something to keep an eye on reform. Don't they make you laugh? People in this country, Gawain Towler, I speak to Gawain a lot. I like him. I like his sense of humour, actually. I like the fact that reform can sack him and he don't care. And then when they want him back, they ask him to come back and he says, yeah, okay. And because Gawain actually believes in the fight and what we're fighting for. That's who he's loyal to. It's not Nigel, it's not reform, it's trying to stop what's happening to this country, because I speak to him and, you know, you can just tell when somebody's being straight with you. So I'm going to show you a clip of Gawain on LBC. And I think it just sums up what many of us think about the current system, the current people we've got in charge, like Rachel from accounts with Lego wear, as Katie Hopkins calls her, and that stooge we've got in number 10. Bearing in mind, when have you ever known anybody, any news item, any particular people take any notice of what's going on at council level? No one's given a toss till now. They've been able to get on, shafting us in every area. My council actually paid for some trees to be planted. There were dead trees, they were dead, planted upside down with roots showing at top. Cost about £11,000 back in the day on this public footpath. Then it cost £3,000 to remove them about a few years after because they were deemed unsafe. Why would you do that? It's supposed to be art. 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 My mother-in-law calls it art. Well, it were art. Art, because she's Lancashire, she talks like that. This is how daft they are. And I'm going to show you Gawain. Oh, they also put some glass baubles in the river. Massive, massive, huge glass baubles for the river to run over. Guess what? They put it near a weir and they all fell off. They lost them. I mean, you couldn't make it up. That was another 7 or 8 grand. That's small potatoes compared. One council, I think it was Staffordshire, spent £2 million doing up a roundabout. Oh, we're really pleased about that. That roundabout looks a lot better. Stuff beds in the NHS or stuff clearing drains to stop it flooding. Let's just have a better looking roundabout. They're bonkers. Anyway, here's Gawain. This tickles me. This is referring to this Reform Watch, this website that's going to scrutinise reform. Hang on, here we go.
I love the idea. Local government has never had national press scrutiny before, but suddenly it does. I wonder why. Because they want to see us fall. But we welcome it because if we have the temerity, the ambition to be the government of this country, we need to show people that we are competent or better. Nobody expects a council leader to be able to stop immigration, but they do expect them to do the job they have to do reasonably and well. There will be mistakes, of course there will, but the people of this country, as far as I've known them all my life, are forgiving of error. What they hate is hypocrisy, and what you're seeing from Labour, from Angela Rayner just now, or on the weekend, from the way you're talking, what they talk, is rank hypocrisy. I love the idea. Local government isn't...
He's right, isn't he? Rank hypocrisy. That's what we don't like. We don't like people like Ed Davies during the election campaign talking about carbon emissions and using a private jet because he wanted to get home from Cornwall to Scotland or the other way around to see his family. No, that's hypocrisy. What else is hypocrisy? Hypocrisy is Keir Starmer turning around to builders, telling builders that if they fail to build enough housing, that they'll be penalised, which will be fined, won't it? Just be an excuse to take money off them. When the way that they're building houses means it's going to fail anyway. Land property, land to build property on has gone up. Materials are at least 40% dearer. I'm a property developer, I know this. Builders are already saving land in land banks, waiting for times to get better because they can't afford the labour. Because, of course, national insurance and PAYE has gone up for the employers section of it, which is utter madness. And Keir's going to fine builders for not building the houses right. Most schemes have what they call affordable housing, and now these new schemes have to have social housing, but paid for housing too, which subsidise the social housing. Nobody wants to buy the houses that are being paid for because they have to be next to social housing and generally don't get looked after. So you end up in a scruffy neighbourhood and your property doesn't go up in value. These are all factors to why this scheme won't work. Because you've got to remember that Keir Starmer he hasn't got a clue how to build anything. So after he threatened builders with penalties, which will be fines, won't it, for if they don't build them in time, I decided to reply to him. So I put, when was the last time you built anything? You're a demolition expert. You've demolished our sovereignty, given the Chagos Islands away, whilst they had a deal with Russia ready to rubber stamp over land and sea rights. You've demolished pensioners, students, small, medium-sized businesses and larger businesses, the disabled, and now we're hog-tied to a cowboy outfit trading as the EU, which is so inept and fuelled by greed and corruption, it can't even make a success by quantitative easing. It's going to access European savings so it can raise 800 billion euros to spend on weapons for a war it hasn't started yet. You're a goddamned awful leader, drunk on power. Now the irony is this. His tweet had 1.5 million views and 5,000 likes. 5,000 out of 1.5 million. Only 5,000 people liked it. My response had 48,700 views. And guess what? 4,900 likes. So nearly as many people liked my response as they did his tweet. That's amazing because it just shows what people really think. Then on the thread, responding to me on that tweet, are various builders, property developers and people in business who totally agreed with what I'd said. So this is the kind of way you can use free speech. Obviously, it takes a pair of gonads to go on Keir Starmer's page. My husband goes to bed every night wondering if I'm going to be arrested. But it's not the sort of thing you get arrested for. I'm not calling for unrest. I'm not calling for you to take to the streets. There's nothing violent about it. You can criticise your government. You can even swear at them, although I wouldn't really do that. Only in the kitchen with my husband. But what I mean is you can push back with common sense. What I've said there is pure common sense. He goes on about a housing crisis. And I said, we haven't got a housing crisis. It's an immigration crisis. Because if we didn't let all the people in, 1 million a year net, we wouldn't need to keep building all these houses. That's quite simple. It impacts on everything we do. School places, transport, the NHS. We've got to keep things practical. And fighting with weapons you can't argue with. Insults won't work, but common sense always works. And that's why the Reform Party are doing so well in the polls, because they're just applying common sense. It's not rocket science. They're not going to change the world when they get into power. What they're going to do is make what we've got better, because all you need to do that is common sense, instead of having a government that's actually gaslighting its own people. Gawain makes complete sense to me. People who follow me think I make sense to them, and that gives them the confidence to say it out loud to other people. And this is all part of the pushback. This is all part of the fight. And it will all come to a cumulative head when we get to an election. So the fact that America's got its eye on us to see how far down the slippery slope we are falling, and America could tweak things through trade deals. Honestly, sanctions and trade tariffs absolutely work. We could end the channel crossings in an instant if we threatened to tariff France. France would stop them setting off. There's several easy measures you could do. Start a licensing situation for people buying outboard motors and dinghies. You have to have a licence to do it. So they have to go through another hurdle. They have to start faking licences, don't they? You need identification to do that. Insist on identification if you land. Easy to do, because they're disposing of the phones. They don't want to be identified because many of them, a huge proportion of them, are actually criminals. And we end up with footing the bill for this lot. That's the bit that is unfair. We could do so much more with a better government. You need the political will to do something about it. And currently, you've got 5 MPs and 10 councils. As Gawain said, a councillor can't stop immigration, but he can certainly put the feelers out locally with businesses and find out which hotels are signing up to these things, because they've got planning permission to be hotels. They cease to be a hotel when they're not open to the public. You could get round it with planning laws. The hotels, they're not supposed to be refugee centres. They weren't built for that. Planning permission was granted for a hotel. And that's an avenue you could go down. There are always ways and means that you can look into things using common sense. So never be afraid to say anything that's making sense to you, because it will make sense to other people.